Hello, everybody. My name is Manuel Castaneda, Director of Community Health at New Brunswick Tomorrow, and I want to welcome everybody to our second day of Vaccine Week. We had a great conversation yesterday about what vaccines are and what the COVID vaccines are. And today we're actually going to cover how vaccines are approved, in particular, how COVID vaccines are approved. But before we get into that, let's introduce everybody who's on our panel, who's going to be discussing stuff with us today. I always have my partner in crime, Mariam Merced. So Mariam, if you want to say hello, please introduce yourself, say hello to everybody.
So thank you, Manuel. Welcome to our second day. We're very excited. We have a great presenter today. We're going to continue this journey to talk about vaccines, specifically the COVID-19 vaccine.
And then without further ado, we want to definitely introduce our presenter for today. And we have Dr. Lisa Lanza, who is a research coordinator at the Rutgers Institute for Health. And Lisa has already done some great presentations on clinical trials and having people understand, how the vaccine got, approved relatively quick compared to other vaccines. So I'm not going to steal your thunder. Let's just jump into it. So first of all, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So Lisa, let me ask you, what is is there a process in which vaccines get approved, and what is that?
There is a process for approving vaccines. Traditionally, the development of vaccines takes years because there are several steps or several phases in the vaccine development, and they're usually completed consecutively with a new phase starting when the other one ends. So the different phases, there's three main phases. The first one is when scientists first test the vaccine in human beings, so that it's in a very small number of volunteers. And this phase helps scientists learn about the safety of the vaccine, the immune response, and the appropriate dosage. Then the second phase is when this testing is expanded to more people, so more like the hundreds of people rather than a small number of people. And scientists continue to assess the safety, the immune response, and dosage, but they look closer at different groups, so more specific age groups. And the third phase is when the vaccine is tested in a larger group of people, so thousands of volunteer participants. And some participants receive a placebo rather than the real vaccine. So this is done so that we can compare the results between the two groups, those who receive it and those who don't. And this is done in order to determine whether the vaccine is safe and effective. So once a vaccine is found to be safe and effective in a broad population, it can be approved and introduced to immunization programs in different states, different cities. But there is continued monitoring of the vaccine and how people respond to it, even after it's approved.
And when you say approved, who actually approves it?
The Food and Drug Administration.
Okay.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it seems, it makes sense that it would be a long process, right? You want to make sure you have it right. So I guess the big question that we have is, that being the case, how did the COVID-19 vaccines get approved so quickly? Well, a lot of people what we've been hearing out in the community are concerned that, I think everybody understands what you were saying, right? That it takes a while for a vaccine to get approved. How come this one was approved so quick? Or
right,
how did it approved so quick?
Yeah, everybody asks the same question, and it's a valid question, right? Because we're all, like, if it's done quickly, we always think that it's done not right. But no, the process for approving the COVID-19 vaccine was the same. The only difference was that the phases that I just spoke about were done almost simultaneously rather than one after the other. So scientists still had to establish whether the vaccine was safe and whether it was effective before it was approved, but they just did it simultaneously. With the COVID-19 vaccine, what happened also is that, because COVID appeared, it didn't appear, but it became a public health issue so quickly that the FDA had to give this vaccine an emergency use authorization. An emergency use authorization is used to facilitate the availability of this vaccine when there's a public health emergency, such as this one. And this is usually done when there are no current alternatives or other treatments to help prevent this life-threatening disease.
And so you mentioned that certain things were so there, you mentioned that there's certain processes, right? But were those process, and I understand that you said that there was an emergency, authorization to do that, but did that eliminate all the processes that needed to happen? So you mentioned that you needed to do, trials on humans, right? To test it out. Did that happen? Was all that still followed, or was that kind of pushed to the side?
No, it was all followed.
And I want to add, I want to also ask, who were those people that participated in those trials? Those people look like us,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Black and brown people participate.
In all the vaccines that have been approved in the U.S., the Pfizer, the Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson, and all the rest, they've been tested in a broad population. So different races, different ethnicities, different age groups, and it's scientists and pharmaceutical companies that are doing this. So it's people that know how vaccines work. So vaccines have been, we have vaccines for everything, for polio, for mumps. So vaccines have been tested since years ago. So with this one, we know about vaccines. We know how they work. We know how they're created. So it's all scientists that are working on this with a broad range of groups. It's not just one kind of person. So it's Latinos, it's white people, it's Black people, so a variety of people.
I think this is a very important point because of past negative experiences with healthcare, with research that many of our vulnerable communities have gone through. It's important for them to know that they were representative from different races, groups that participated in these clinical trials.
Yeah, and my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, from what I've heard, is that a lot of people signed up to be part of the clinical trial, right? I from what I hear, that tends to be the problem with other clinical trials, is trying to get people recruited to happen. But I heard that was different for this one, that they actually had a good number of people, step up and want to be part of that process. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, I can pull up the numbers, but yeah, it was thousands of people. Like, it's still being monitored too, like right now. So when we're talking about safety and efficacy, with safety, what they do is they compare to the two groups that I talked about earlier, the people that did receive the vaccine and those that did not. So if those that did receive the vaccine, they assess whether they had more adverse events or like severe side effects. So if they didn't, that means that the vaccine is safe, right? Because the two groups are having the same, the same symptoms, there's no extreme severe cases for those that receive the vaccine. And in terms of effectiveness, is they assess whether there's more incidents or more cases of the disease in those that receive the vaccine and those that didn't receive it. So it would be effective if those that did receive the vaccine had less cases, right? That's what it means to be effective. So yeah, there were thousands of participants, and each vaccine, I'm trying to give you the numbers here, but yeah, each pharmaceutical company did it in in different number of people. So I know with Pfizer, they did more than 20,000 people have been part of this one. With the Moderna, it's been around around the same 15,000 people or more, because they're still, it's still being monitored. So this is still being tested, right? But they know that it's safe because those that have received the vaccine haven't had adverse events or haven't had severe side effects. And same with J&J. With J&J, it's also been in the thousands, like 20,000 and above. So it's a lot of people. It's not like the first phase, it's only in like a few. The second one is hundreds, and then this third one, it's thousands.
And then from what I hear now too, is that, like you said, they're continuing to just monitor it, right? To make sure that it's okay. But that it was given the approval after they saw that it was effective in adults. And now that I hear that they're actually now doing clinical trials with children, correct? To see if they can, if now the vaccine is safe for children. Is that correct?
I think they are testing in different groups of people. I'm not 100% sure who is doing it on children, but I know they do want to test it on different groups, like, breastfeeding women. I know that they're getting it now. And, pregnant women, people with different medical conditions, because they need to test that to make sure that, that it's not, like I said, that they don't get severe side effects.
And you're absolutely right. They still are monitoring anybody that is taking the vaccine. We get a reminder on our phones to tell if we have any symptoms, if we had to do anything, if we go to work after having the vaccine, which is very important that we answer those text messages and we give our information, because it goes to a big data pool that is important for us to understand, how the vaccine is working.
Right.
Something that you mentioned that I just kind of want to point out, because I think it's important, in terms of the difference, right? You said that, generally with clinical trials, they kind of wait, or rather the approval process, they wait until the government waits until the end to then look at all the data before they make a decision, right? Now, you mentioned that in this instance, they didn't do that, correct? They kind of started looking at the data as soon as they were able to get it. Right. Is that right?
Yeah. As soon as
I'm assuming helped bring down the time.
Right, exactly. And it's like I said before, it's because COVID, affected so many so quickly that there was no treatment to prevent, so many have been dying because of COVID, and we don't have a specific treatment for it. So that's why they had to do what we're doing right now. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But it's important to know that even though it was done that fast, there was no corners that were cut. The process continued to be the same.
Exactly. Yes.
So on that note, based on what we talked about, yes, there's no denying that the processes were different in terms of time, right? But I guess the major question here, right, and to hear it from an expert like yourself is, okay, so it's different, but is it then safe? Is it something that we can recommend to our communities to say, look, yes, we made it quicker. We did things so that the process would be quicker to approve these vaccines, but they are effective and they are safe. Would you go on record saying that that's the case?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yes, the vaccines that have been approved here in the United States. Well, the other ones too, but the Pfizer, the Moderna, and the Johnson & Johnson are all safe. And like I said, safety is comparing the two groups, and the ones that did receive the vaccine haven't had like adverse events or more like unusually higher number of adverse events or severe side effects. So the safety is acceptable because of that. And so yeah, they're safe. Of course, they do have common side effects. Like with any other vaccine, there are some side effects. The most common ones are like fever, pain, fatigue, and headache. With the Moderna and Pfizer, for the first dose, less than 1% of people get a fever. Most get pain in the area where the shot was placed. There's also like 30% get a headache or fatigue. So you may feel tired, you may, get a headache. And then with the second dosage, the side effects are a little bit stronger, but it's still safe. It doesn't mean you're sick. It's just your body reacting to it. So most people, about 14% of people will experience fever from both the Moderna and Pfizer with the second dose. And most people will experience the fatigue, the pain, and the headache. So it's normal, but like I said before, it doesn't mean you're sick. Then with the Johnson & Johnson, it's only one dose. And with that one, about 10% of people get a fever. And some people, like 38%, get fatigue and 23% get a headache. So it's not a lot. And these symptoms are mild. This does not compare to actually having COVID. Because with COVID, you don't know if you're going to get mild symptoms, no symptoms, or like extreme, like severe symptoms. So with the vaccine, they're mild symptoms and they usually last an average 1 to 3 days. And like just some things to point out also, that I know people, people talk and people, they spread the word on this. These vaccines cannot cause COVID-19. So like I said, if you're feeling these symptoms, it's not because you have COVID-19. Like it's mild symptoms that only last a couple days. They also do not change or alter your DNA. They don't change that. They use the DNA from the virus, and that's how they created the vaccine. But it doesn't mean that once you take the vaccine, it doesn't alter your DNA or your genetic material. And the last thing is that scientists do not think that COVID-19 will have long-term, the vaccine will have long-term effects. But like I said, that's still being monitored.
Yeah, something that you mentioned, and in fact, our presenter yesterday mentioned, when we're talking about vaccines in general, is that feeling those mild side effects is actually a good thing, right? Because what we've heard, that means that your body's actually showing you that it's building the defenses, right? The it was discussed, to fight the disease. So not that it's a disease itself, but it's your body telling you, look, we're ready to fight this just in case you are exposed to that. That's correct, right?
Yeah. So when a strange like a virus or bacteria comes into your body, wants to work against it. So that's why we get sick, right? Because that's why we get fever, because your body is working against it. With the vaccine, it's like a small, like we're teaching our immune cells to protect us and to fight that instead of getting sick. Right. So it's two ways. You either get sick and build build immunity against the disease, or you get vaccinated and we teach ourselves to fight against it. So that's the difference, right? Because our bodies are amazing. Our bodies are trying to protect us. The reason why we get fever and pain is because our bodies are trying to protect us.
Right. Yesterday, we also mentioned that it was like the first vaccine is like you're doing your training, your military training. Then the second vaccine, you're going to war now. You go
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And your body recognizes it. That's what the second dosage is for. It's a booster because it's meant to make it stronger, right? It's meant to be like, oh, I remember this virus. Now I'm going to make an army to fight against it. So that's pretty much why we get a little bit more of the symptoms in the second dosage.
Great. Thank you so much. So just to be clear, based on your expertise, these vaccines, because there's more than one, are safe, right? That the process to approve them, even though it's an emergency process, is an effective process, and that you should you should trust that these vaccines are safe for you if they say that you can take them, correct?
Yes, they are safe.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today. We really do appreciate it. The community appreciates it. Miriam, we're done with day 2.
Yes, that's so good. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, tomorrow we will be covering how vaccines are being distributed and how to get an appointment, right? So we'll be having somebody from the Middlesex County Department of Health Services on to kind of walk us through that. So we look forward to that. Thanks again, everybody. Have a good day.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.